You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of 9 of September 2018, episode 93. From the city by the Sailor Sea, I am AJ Barce.
And checking in from 98226, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, AJ and I got our mind on our money and our money on our minds. No, we're not talking about Snoop Dogg. We're continuing our PNW State of Mind series and how we can be mindful of our financial house. Check one, check two. You know what to do. This is the Bellingham Podcast.
Make it rain Benjamins, Chris. Make it rain Benjamins.
That's right. Little Easter egg on that hook that I came up with. Yeah. The song Gin and Juice from Snoop Dogg. Right. When was it recorded? 1993.
93. Oh, nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay. How's it going, AJ?
Good. Doing well. Chris, how you doing?
Oh, obligatory response to obligatory greeting. I'm doing just great.
Okay, let's move on to a salutations
Greetings
and
and
segue.
salutations, that's right.
So on this episode, we are covering the finances, our dietary substance of the Benjamins. At the top of the show, we have another obligatory that we're going to do because, Chris and I, we have opinions and they are not gospel. So here's our obligatories. The views expressed on this episode are that of Chris Powell and myself and should not be taken as financial advice. Be sure if you're going to try anything in your life to consult your tax accountant or fiduciary or financier before trying to change anything in your life.
Amen.
Preach. So, at the top of the show, I have a couple of primers because that's what I like to do.
Yes.
So there's this magazine, and we'll get to subscriptions here in a second, but Popular Science.
Pop Sci,
yes. Right? So kind of going a little broader in my swath of pulling in publications. About a year ago, if I recall, they published this article, What Are You Subscribed to These Days? ... And how much does it cost each month?
Oh, boy.
I just thought it was an interesting thing because I think in today's internet economy, we've gotten so used to, I'll get HBO Go. I'll subscribe to Netflix for the year. I'll have Audible for a couple of months. And we forget about it. And we just, darn it, it charged me again this month. Oh, well. And we get into that habit. Chris,
it's like the gym membership, how you get set up. Yeah. And all of a sudden, why is my bank account drained at the end of the month?
And why am I not feeling swole?
Yeah, no, I'm not. But yeah, I took a look at the subscriptions that I have and most of them, are, so I have an Apple ID and it's easy. It's really easy just to push a button and get that subscription. Yeah, that's it. Our family, so we have family expenses in Chris's casa, and then Chris's expenses.
In Chris's casa.
Yes, as a nerd. So we'll call the family expenses and the nerd expenses. The family expenses, we have a iTunes family plan where any song you want you can listen to or add it to a playlist, et cetera, et cetera. That's $15 a month. I found it prudent to bump up our iCloud storage to help with backups. By the way, Apple iPhone users, the 5 gigabytes that you get for free go before it's all used up. You might want to kick up $3 a month for 200 gigs just to make sure your phone and iPads are backed up. A couple of other related things, and we are looking at approximately $25 a month for internet technology related monthly subscriptions.
Right.
So that's 25.
Yeah. That's
somewhat reasonable because, we don't have cable television.
Right.
And, but then there's me.
Chris.
As a tech nerd and someone who often, they'll put it on my tombstone, I'll go first.
I'll remember that for your eulogy.
Yeah, please do. So I often want to find out about a certain app like we talk about on here. And back in the day, I used to want to install new software to learn about it so I can advise my clients, wink, wink, it's a chance for me to play with new shiny. Well, I have quite a few annual subscriptions because now they're getting really smooth. Right. You'll get about a $40 annual fee, which actually turns out to about $325, $310 a month, but it still adds up. And with all of these software applications that I have, I am well exceeding $25 a month just for the nerd side. Yeah. And I chalk that up to being blessed with a career that I can afford some of that mostly, but it really gave me a I was admonished internally.
Pause for audit.
Yes, exactly. And so got to take a look at that as we approach the upcoming holiday season.
Yeah.
And just in the future for this fall season to figure out what am I needing to drop on tech subscriptions. How about you, AJ? What are you dropping cashola on?
So ours, I mean, the heavy hitters I wanted to point out because I think we get a little bit complacent, and I love the fact that you and I immediately went to the gym membership, right? Like because we think, because it's there, I'll use it, and a lot of the times, you don't. I mean, some of us do, but regardless, whether it's a gym membership or that Costco membership, or that Amazon Prime membership, like I know of a few people who have actually dropped their Amazon Prime because they don't utilize all the other hooks. Not everybody's a geek and uses the photo backup for Amazon Prime Photos or Amazon Prime Music or Amazon Prime Streaming. And just take an audit of what you've gotten in the habit of just keeping around, and maybe you don't need it. I've even talked to some people who are dropping Netflix because they already have Amazon Prime and they're pretty close. There's some things that you can't get on one or the other, but why pay for two? Why pay for three if you have HBO Go, you know?
And why not drop Netflix until you know that you're going to be spending some time.
And then binge watch
for a month and go sloth and just gaze at the screen for whatever the amount is, and then put it in dormancy.
Right.
And save yourself some money over 3 or 4 months.
And this is something that I do often with a subscription service that does not sponsor our show, Audible.
Yes.
I love audiobooks. You basically have turning on my phone, looking at my email and my texts from my wife, and then podcasts in Audible. That's basically all I use my phone for most of the time, short of recording our show.
Sure.
But Audible is one of those things where first of all, it takes me quite a bit of a time to get through a book, reading or listening. So I don't do the routine like annual membership of Audible. I'll turn it on for a month, I'll use a credit, and then I'll turn it off because you still get to use Audible. You still have the book. You've bought and paid for the book. The app is still free. But I know some people that just keep racking up the credits. Yeah. And depending on the plan, you lose your credits. Like you don't get to keep them all. So
a mindful use of your subscription.
Right. So just keep an audit of what you've gotten into the use of and audit it before the new year. That way you can go into the new year kind of squeaky clean and go, maybe AJ had something right. Maybe, we'd use Amazon Prime and maybe we don't need to pay that $9.99 now a month for Netflix.
$9.90 a month for $9.99 a month for Netflix, and also depending on when your Amazon Prime renews,
right?
That's up to $120 a month.
Now.
Hey, guess what, kids? That's also $10 a month.
Yeah.
Here it comes. These poker chips start to stack up, and all of a sudden you've got something that. Now you're wondering where your money goes.
Right. So that's the primer on that. Also in that PopSci article, there was some apps and services that they kind of highlighted and recommended, which will scrape your email for you. I didn't want to mention them on the show because I can't vet them.
Right.
But you can read the article. There's a link in the show notes.
Drink.
And you can take a look at it and see if that might be another option, because sometimes we subscribe to things we forget that we're paying for them, The other primer for this episode I wanted to bring up is a little bit more in an environmental vein, but also in a financial vein. And it links back to our first episode of this series. It gets back to food.
Yep.
And it's a Washington Post article that I think was published a couple months back. It was published this year in 2018. The name of the article is "The Staggering Environmental Footprint of All the Food That We Just Throw in the Trash." And this is something that I've heard time and time again, that in America, like, this is something that is a phantom sucking of our finances, is that we get food and it goes to waste, whether it's fresh vegetables that we forgot to use because it's easier to go get takeout. We'll talk about that later. But out of this more recent survey, or more the data that they gathered in this, there's a quote that I wanted to pull out, and says, quote, "Our data suggests that the average person in the U.S. wastes about a pound of food a day, according to a University of Vermont." I just find this really kind of unsettling. A pound of food a day. Everybody in the United States, like on average, if you had a pound of food, that's 7 pounds of food a week. If you go to the bulk section of anything, how much is a pound of nuts? That's a lot of money.
It's a bicep curl. And to throw that away, it's not just, I'm not going to finish the burger and those fries that I get in the huge quantity portion. It's also like you mentioned, fresh vegetables that have spoiled,
right?
Or the milk that has reached its expiration date when you buy something with the intention. And hey, I'm talking to myself.
Same here.
Yeah,
Same here.
What we got in our family, we're just as guilty, and we got to work on that as well, being more appropriate with what we're getting to be able to consume it in that time frame. It's staggering because 365 pounds a year, that's at least 2 average size people, give or take, per year.
Right.
And that's staggering that amount of body weight is being thrown away.
And on top of it, it's food that you bought and paid for. That's just, you're throwing away Benjamins.
Yeah.
And this gets into something I want to mention a little bit later in the show, which is meal prep. This is something that you easily, we get accustomed to, like, oh, it's been a hard day. Let me go grab a Boomer's burger. Or,
yes.
Oh man, a Costco pizza sounds really good right now.
I'll get a slice.
Yeah. And when you do that, it sets back the rest of the other groceries that you got and sets, your prep a little bit off.
Because I have the intention of cooking at home 7 nights a week. That's what I buy the stuff for. Oh, guess what? Life occurs.
Right.
And convenience and that little angel on the order saying, just get this now. You can cook that stuff later. Oh, guess what? It reached its expiration date. All right.
So that's kind of the primer for this show. Now, Chris, tell me about a little bit. So one of the things that you and I talked off the mic, and this is going to be kind of a more sensitive topic that we've covered on the show, credit cards, right? Like, this is, if you haven't gathered this, folks, like, we've kind of hit on topics that are a little bit uncouth. Like, we're talking about finances and diet and pretty much everything other than religion and politics, because there's other shows for that. But we're going to hit on something that, I think all of us are impacted here, at least in the continental United States. Talk to me about credit cards.
I would love to be able to say, yeah, not a problem. Pay the balance off at the end of the month and, rack up the points. I haven't done well in my adult life in managing credit cards and finances, and in my angry 20s decade. For those of you that may have caught a previous newsletter in the past, you would have learned about how I racked up 5 digits of credit card debt due to stupidity and unwise decisions and trying to be someone that I wasn't so that other people would like me. Buying stuff, going on trips, et cetera, et cetera. And the number one rule of creating wealth is spend less than you make. And I wasn't subscribing to that, and that's been a struggle for most of my adult life. And especially when you're a tech nerd, and there's so much new equipment that comes out every 3 months. What's a time frame now? It's like almost there's always something new coming out.
Yeah, I think it's getting truncated. I think it's more. It used to be a 24-month cycle. Now I think it's closer to 18.
So there's a couple website and app options out there for you should you be interested. One of them is by a company called Mint, which is mint.com. No, it's not a gum company. This is actually one that will help connect your bank to your free account, and then you can kind of view where your money's going because your finances are imported in, and your expenditures you're able to see in a rather clean format compared to some banking websites that really don't give you a whole lot of analytics and data. Mint has a free app on iOS and the Android app stores. Something to check out. It got bought by a company called Intuit, and you may have heard the Intuit fine people make TurboTax. So they're trying to create that whole silo, the financial ecosystem for you. You do your taxes with them. Oh, here's Mint to be able to track this as well. So mint.com. There's also YNAB. You need a budget. Boy, don't I need a budget. Anyway, and I'm happy that my wife has really sound financial principles that I can lean on when the time comes.
Thank you, Chris's wife.
There you go. So YNAB, do a Google search for it, and you'll see an app free in the store, depending on what device you have, and also the .com site. You can check out and learn more about how you can be more mindful and prudent in curating what you spend your money on. I got to shoot straight. As we're talking about expenditures and things, AJ, this has always been a battle. And but when we're recording this, we are days away from the penultimate event for 2018. What's that?
My birthday?
Not quite.
Oh.
It's Apple having a little bit of a presentation about the new products that they're coming out for the iPhones and iPads and laptops and watches and everything else coming up this new holiday season. And I'm just really in this mood where I really want to have a season of frugality. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm still trying to figure it out. But how can I just not buy stuff? And I really don't have an articulated, eloquent explanation for it.
I do.
What's that?
You want to invoke minimalism. I know. Like, we talk about minimalism
all the time.
Trademark. But I'm talking about minimalism with like the lowercase m. Like, I feel you. Like, a lot. You just hit the nail on the head. You have a credit card, and that is to accrue stuff.
Yes.
How to be anti that? Get your minimalist hat on.
And if you if you're listening in and you have a monthly balance, I feel you. I've been there. I know what you're going through. And if you can do anything possible to eliminate or bring down that credit card debt, you're doing yourself a service. The future self, like future Biff and Back to the Future, you're not getting the Inside Sports Almanac now, but what you're doing is you're setting future Biff up for having a little bit more peace of mind in the future, where you're not weighed down by that monthly payment that is growing or that you're not making any ground on. And if you can put any kind of dollars or not have some kind of convenience, food, lunch, dinner, coffee, drink, whatever, try to divert that into paying off part of the principal of your balance. That will help you out. There's a fellow out there named Dave Ramsey, and I may have talked with him about him in a previous episode as we talked about finances or such, but he's a financial guru, overused term, but what I really have resonated with is this debt snowball method. If you've had in the past 5 credit cards or more, you take the one with the least amount of balance, and while still trying to make minimum payments on the others, but you try to get that credit card with the least balance down to 0. Once that's down to 0, you take that money you're spending on the least one, roll that into the next lowest balance, and then drive that one down to 0. And just build that up. Therefore, you reach this inertia and momentum that you can pay off a whole lot of stuff. Easier said than done, ladies and gentlemen. I had a tough time with it, but it's sound kind of thoughts. Yeah. And there's also another site and YouTube app out there. So along those same lines, before we get to that YouTube, I do want to say you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM. Low power.
Community financial, radio.
Community radio.
Community radio here in the heart of the city of subdued excitement.
That's right.
So there's this channel called The Financial Diet. My wife, she stumbled upon it, and it was just really refreshing having a, dare I say, older millennial whom I believe she's located on the East Coast, did the whole thing, did the whole life thing, went to college, racked up debt, student debt, all that other jazz. And then life happened afterwards. Like, oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I make ends meet type of thing on, East Coast lack of salary, right? And so out of it, it was just refreshing having somebody from the younger generation say, look, I did it. I messed up. Here's what I've learned, and I want you to learn it too, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I did.
Yep.
And it resonates with people younger than her, and even for older than her. I mean, with a lot of the advice that she mentions, it's the same stuff that we're talking about today. The frequency of doing something on convenience, or do you really need something, or do you just want it? And is there a return on investment on some things? Like some things that we say, buy the best, cry once, because you're going to have it for the rest of your life.
Yep.
As opposed to every 18 months to get the newest and greatest, because that's what marketing says.
Yeah, it's the discipline fact. And
that D word.
Yeah, here we go again. Discipline, drink. I'll go first. I don't have the discipline when it comes to, I really could use this. I'm not there yet, but this is a great channel to subscribe to on YouTube. I was mentioning this before. When you go to your YouTube app, you'll probably see on your home screen, they'll have these randomized videos. Some of them are related to videos that you've seen before. If you subscribe to a channel, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Barsay, but I think that it might augment, or the algorithm might modify so that you get more similar videos coming into your feed, as opposed to unboxing or makeup tips or crashes on city streets.
Yes.
Here's some more healthy video content coming into your, for you on the homepage of your YouTube app by subscribing to something like The Financial Diet.
Yeah. So take a look at her channel. Like I said, it's great and it's refreshing. The other thing I want to point out to this is the crux to all of this is that convenience factor. And I mean, love it or hate it, the internet has brought us a lot of convenience. We can get pretty much anything from anywhere around the world in Prime 2-day shipping.
We used to see this back in the 1950s with Warner Brothers Looney Tunes cartoons where Wile E. Coyote would put something in the mail and here's the Acme company delivering it immediately to try to get the Roadrunner.
Meep.
Well, we've got the Acme company. Their name is
Amazon.
That's right.
And yes, Amazon, at the time of this recording, yes, Chris and I are aware that Amazon has some other headlines going on. But again, it's one of those things where I want to give tools for those listening who, are listening to this going, yeah, but where do I start type of a thing? Because yeah, I've got a balance on my credit card or I am trying to pay it off. How do I start? And here's a really simple one. So if you've got Amazon, I do, Chris does, pretty much everybody does. Here's something that my wife and I have started to do where you see something on Amazon and you think it's a good price and you put it in your cart and the next thing is, let's just check out because Amazon has everything, right? Don't. Let it sit there. Let it mull for 24 hours. Ask yourself tomorrow if it's still in your cart and it's still the same price because things on Amazon do go up and down.
Oh, yeah.
And then see if you really do need it as opposed to just you want it and it was convenient when you looked at it. As someone who is a watch nut, trust me, there's been plenty of watches where I'm like, oh, this is a really good deal. I'll throw it in my Amazon cart and I shut my laptop and walk away. Mm-hmm. And the next morning I'm like, what was I thinking? I do not need another GMT. Like it's one of those things where your mind gets wound up in, oh, this would be so good. Oh, I can see myself doing this and don't buy into it. Just set it there. It's Amazon. It's not like they're going to run out anytime soon. If they do, maybe that wasn't for you. So stick it in your Amazon cart and wait 24 hours and ask yourself the next day or two, maybe even do it on like a Friday and then ask yourself on a Monday, like, did I really need it after that weekend?
And if you want some encouragement about what AJ just talked about, consider this. Amazon's prices are not fixed. As he alluded to, prices fluctuate because true story. Amazon has a thing called essentials. Mm-hmm. Amazon they do clothing, basics type clothing staples, and there are some black long sleeve shirts.
Ooh, that's Chris Palapoo.
That's a stretch, yeah. So anyway, I noticed this black long sleeve shirt was $18. Okay, so I'll put it in my wish list. Oh, yeah. That's also another way. Just keep it out of the cart, put it in a wish list for the someday kind of thing. As I'm walking, through my wish list, I noticed that the price of those shirts went from 18 to 10.
Yep.
And you might see how there's a little notification. Prices dropped 4% or 5%. Might be a way to save some money. It won't happen on every item. Your mileage may vary, but this could be another way to game the system. Like you're putting this into a wish list or cart at $30. Well, if it goes to 26 and you really still want it, now you save $4 and you feel a little bit better.
Right. And the last thing about this with online shopping is if you haven't heard of the website Camel, you really should start using it. It's great for Amazon stuff because especially if you're even if you're a gear person where you're always like a photographer, right? I'm always looking for certain things for my my business, right? You can take a link from Amazon of a specific thing, put it into Camel. It's a free sign up, and it will notify you when you give it a set price. Like for instance, there's a lens I'm looking at that's about $550, but I don't want to buy it at that peak price because I've seen it go down and it shows you just like stock. It shows you it's high, it's low, and it's median price. And so I'm gaming for about $475 before I throw down. And this helps you with your budget. It forces you to say, hey, it is worth whatever it is, X to me, and I'm not going to throw down unless. And it gives you a little bit of that jump start of what discipline looks like. You're not going to unless.
# empowered shopping. Yeah, Camel is great. .com. So yeah.
So to wrap up the show, the last thing I wanted to bring in is, like we said in the primer for this episode, food. I mean, I think it is well known that the Western diet here in the United States has its ups and downs. And I mean, it's usually downs on mood and ups in weight. So With that said, how do we help everybody? Like whether it's financially or healthy eating, like we said in the first episode, I think it starts with meal prep. I'm just gonna throw that out because that is one of the things, just like that study said, we are wasting food, which means we are wasting money. So let's stop that. One of the things that I always hear is meal prep is hard. Meal prep sucks. Well, once you meal prep, you have to stick to that. Yep. Like if it's Meatloaf Mondays, you're going to have meatloaf on Monday. Okay. So you have to get into a habit, and see previous shows. We talked about an app that helps you get into better habits. I mentioned Argus before, and this is great if you're trying to lose weight, but also they have helpful recipes in there for meal prep to kind of give you ideas for your palate, because maybe you have a very lackadaisical palate where you get bored on food fast.
Sure.
That, like I said, it's a great way to kind of figure out what you're putting in you, but also how often and how much. The other thing I want to throw out there for families is buy me a pie.
Tell me more.
Okay. Well, first of all, I love pie. So Chris, buy me a pie.
Yes, I will. I'll get right on that.
I'm going to actually give a shout out to a friend and colleague of ours, Kevin. He showed me this many moons ago. Great photographer. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Drink.
Buy me a pie is the coolest familial grocery app I've seen. It's nothing like ground earth shaking. Except I realized something in using it. How many families actually do a shopping list anymore? And it gets back to what you said at the beginning of the show. Life happens. We're busy. So we, at the end of work, right, we swing in because we know we ran out of milk because we poured it down the drain. I got to go get milk. Oh, this is on sale. I should get this. And then we start just buying based off of either hunger or hangry. And this forces us to get back in the old 1950s routine of, okay, how many eggs do we have? Do we need to get more eggs? Hey, we bought milk last week. We don't need another gallon of milk. That way we're not wasting it just by buying more. I don't care if it's an app or if it's paper. Write down what you expect to buy and maybe base it around, like if you're doing Meatloaf Mondays or whatever, prep in advance. Okay. Also for your lunches, prep your meals in advance and bring something with you. Brown bagging it will save you money, folks, as opposed to getting something quick downtown. And I love our food trucks.
Yep.
Holla.
Absolutely.
And I love supporting our local community, but I need to support me first before I can make those expenditures.
While we're talking about food purchases and wise use of, let's roll some tech into it. Two major grocery stores that we have here in Bellingham and probably elsewhere you might find. Kroger has Fred Meyer has Kroger food, and Winco is a high volume grocery type store. They both have apps that you can get online coupons. And as you look through their stores, you might be able to save a little bit more money. Yeah, we're not clipping the Sunday morning paper coupons to use. That can get tedious and cumbersome. But if you got an app that all you do is you just pop in or have them scan your phone QR code. I'm not sure how that works. I really haven't
sure. I've seen people use it though.
Yeah. How about saving 10 or 15 bucks on your grocery bill after you've already been prudent and get the list and such? Let's stack one more layer on top of this stack for going shopping. So check out if your grocery store has some type of digital coupons available as well.
Also, along the same vein, like I'll give props to Hagen, our local grocery chain. They do still do paper coupons. And what's cool about, again, if you think about it from the perspective of financial fortitude and trying to prep your meals in advance and try to scope out like a week at a time, you can line up paper coupons from Hagen. But also if you're going to be buying a whole bunch of stuff at one time on certain days, like if you go up to like $50, they'll throw in like a $25 offer coupon type of thing. So like you could literally get free food basically. Like you have to watch the weekly, mailer that goes out. If you're like me and you're like, I hate my snail mail because 90% of it is junk mail. Before you say it's junk mail, take a look at coupons. Coupons are still a thriving thing. There's even a show, I think, on the History Channel about coupon clippers, like professional coupon clippers, where it's a whole other job.
Yeah, they're mutants.
They are, but it's true. Like I've seen my wife do this where she's stacked up, and it was a little bit of effort on her part, but it wasn't like the full-time job that those shows were showing where, Hagen this weekend's got a special. We got to buy groceries. Let's just go on that day. And hey, we got $15 taken off.
I want to say that they're mutants in a good way, by the way.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they're part of the Dr. X.
Thank you, Xavier.
Anyway,
so I believe that wraps it up for this edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us, wherever you like to get your local, homegrown, and financial fiscally fortitude podcast. If you're in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
Power low, low power.
Low power. I'm AJ Barce.
And I'm Chris Powell. Thanks again, once again, for joining us on the Bellingham Podcast.
All I want to do is and take your money. You know that song?
No, I don't.
Oh, dude.
What is it?
It's an old, not old song. I guess old by my standards. It's like a college era song.